Sri Lanka, a paradise island of many faiths, popular with tourists from all over the world. But the peace is about to be shattered by a series of terror attacks. This is the story of the minutes that followed and how they changed the lives of 3 people from thousands of miles away.
When you walk on a day like today, it's a holiday today, and people are here, looking in the beach in a way for a hope.
The only way we, as a family, and I think as a world, can come to recover is that something good can come out of something so evil.
Easter Sunday, 2019. The luxury Shangri-La Hotel in the capital, Colombo, was packed with visitors enjoying their holiday.
Look through the window. It's a beautiful morning, just like any other normal morning. I lock the door, and I can hear the nice music at the background. It's kind of a very zen-like in Shangri-La.
Kieran from London was staying at the hotel while on business. Hanneke and a friend from Australia had booked a last-minute holiday here.
Everything was done really well. The service, the quality, everything was done at a really high quality. I loved it, those first few days.
I was walking through the corridor to the lift, and I pressed the button and the lift opened, and I got in.
Two local men had also checked in. They were caught on security cameras on their way to breakfast.
We walked into the restaurant past all of the stations of food. These 2 men brushed past me. They were swinging around these big backpacks that I found quite odd at the time. One guy was looking quite intently around the area. He got quite close to my face, and I remember finding that really uncomfortable.
The 2 men had sworn allegiance to the Islamic State group. They were here to kill tourists.
Just heard that big thud, big bomb underneath. Everything goes silent. You don't hear any sound anymore. You literally, for a moment, you freeze.
All I remember was hearing a sound coming from my right, and I remember feeling like pressure. The next thing I knew, I was on the ground.
Must have been about 5 seconds later. You can hear the screaming on the lift next to me. Kids were screaming, and you can see the jerk stopping of the movement. The door opened. That's when you see all this carnage just in front of me.
It was as if there was like ash coming from the ceiling.
I just see the wires all dropping out of the roof. The whole, the walls are all shattered. You can hear the water sprinklers. You can see people, blood all over, running around, trying to escape.
As I looked down and saw that, I noticed that from head to toe, I was covered in blood. I saw the destruction in the room that had been caused, and I saw the terror in other people's eyes. I basically thought we were definitely going to die.
David Lindsay was in London that day, but his father and brother and sister were staying in the Shangri-La Hotel.
Almost 4 now. He's American.
Yeah.
And my mother's English.
Yeah.
They're all pictures of Emily and Dan, exactly.
And this is Emily, how old is she here?
She's probably 14 now.
Yeah.
This is Emily and Dan on the beach in California, which is where we went every year. Emily really was the glue that held the entire family together. She was as close to everyone. Dan was the most selfless person you could ever ask for.
David, Emily and Daniel's elder brother, had stayed at home to study for his exams.
Well, they were just on holiday, really, because they were very adventurous people. They wanted to get to know the world better, develop a global view, really, on how things worked as much as possible. They were caught up in the attack on the Shangri-La while they were at breakfast. They'd gone to get something from the buffet, when it happened, and just because of the way they'd been standing. You know, my dad made it out with barely a scratch, but no, they didn't.
Amelie and Daniel were amongst those rushed to Sri Lanka's National Hospital. Dr. Indika Delanarol was one of the medical staff trying to save the wounded.
A lot of casualties were there, a lot of dead bodies around me, and I still remember ambulances were coming, so people were like shouting to each other. There are quite a number of foreigners who were affected, and they were like shell-shocked. And probably somewhere in European countries who were not like seeing what is something like this happen.
Amelie and Daniel Lindsay couldn't be saved. 2 of the 35 people who lost their lives in the Shangri-La that morning. But it wasn't just 3 luxury hotels that were bombed on Easter Sunday. The island's Christian community was also a target, on a day when churches were packed.
It is a special day for Christians, especially. It is a resurrection day.
At the Zion Church on the island's east coast, a young man arrived wearing a large rucksack. Brother Stanley, who was helping at the service, spoke to him.
He's very young, and he had a bag. He was very calm, and then later on I was thinking in different ways how he was looking. I spoke to him, and he refused to come in. Then at that time I didn't feel anything, but I went inside.
The Zion Church recorded the sound of their service starting.
இந்த நல்ல காலை வேளையிலுமாய் ஆண்டவரே, நீர் அல்பாவும் ஒமேகாவும் ஆதியும் அந்தமுமாய் இருக்கிறபடியினாலே நன்றி. நீர் உயிர்
Huge sound. All the ceilings from the stage one side fall down.
This church was one of 3 bombed that day by other young men in the terror cell operating on the island, inspired by the so-called Islamic State.
That was a terrifying scene. I never seen in my life that way, because I have seen many wars, but I have never seen this kind of terror.
Across the island, another Easter service was just finishing at St. Sebastian's Church in Negombo.
මමත් මගේ දුවත් පොඩි ස්ටෝල් දෙකක් තියෙන මමයි මගේ දුවයි ඉඳගෙන හිටියා ස්ටෝල් වල මගේ හස්බන්ඩ් මා පිටිපස්සෙන් හිටගෙන හිටියා.
Chandrani and her family, devout Christians, were in the congregation that day as another suicide bomber detonated his device.
මට කිසිම සද්දයක් ඇහුනේ නැහැ. මගේ දරුවා කියනවා එයාගේ ඔළුව පහත් කරගෙන මම විනාඩි 10ක් විතර හිටියලු. මම පිටිපස්ස බලලා මම මගේ හස්බන්ඩ් කෝ කියලා මම හැරිලා බලන විට මගේ හස්බන්ඩ් ජේසු අරගෙන ඉන්න තිබුණා. එයාගේ ජීවිතේ නැති වෙලා තිබුණා. ඉතින් ඇත්තටම හරිම දුකයි. අපිට වචන වලින්වත් කියා ගන්න බෑ.
115 people are believed to have been killed at St. Sebastian's, 27 of them children. It was the worst loss of life in the 9 bombings that day. As Sri Lankans tried to rebuild their lives, the Lindsay family were also trying to come to terms with their devastating loss. David was determined to do something positive for Sri Lanka. So the family established a charity in memory of Amelie and Daniel to provide support for the hospitals that were so overwhelmed that day.
Doctors in Sri Lanka are very good because they've dealt with the civil war for 30 years. So they really did everything they could. You know, there weren't enough trolley beds for people. People were being carried into the hospital, treated up against the wall. And, you know, as good as the doctors were, there was no way they could save everyone. Yeah, exactly.
Now, nearly a year on, David has come to Colombo to see a delivery of new hospital beds paid for by his charity fundraising in Britain. Here they are, the trolley beds, and you're in Sri Lanka to see them. And what do you feel?
Well, really a deep feeling of pride and gratitude for actually managing to get something done, and for everyone who's helped us and who's allowed this to be possible. So these were made in a local factory, and we wanted to source as much of the equipment locally as possible because the country's been hit very hard. So every dollar of business, you know, we can give to local companies is helping even more than just bringing the beds.
And the fact that you're in this hospital, where I think you have actually seen the place where your brother and sister were brought, I mean, this is very tough to deal with.
Very tough. And, you know, of course, when I saw that place last time, it was very, very upsetting. And, you know, it's somewhat comforting to feel that upset somewhat replaced with a bit of pride for bringing these trolley beds here.
Providing beds is just the start for the charity.
Then we go to bigger pieces of equipment, and if we get the funding, we could even build our own hospital. But we'll just have to see, you know, what prices we can get and how things will work out operationally, but I'm very optimistic.
The charity is also working with the authorities to improve practical trauma care, and there are plans to help the wider community.
We want to try and aid the recovery of the country, both socially and economically. And there's a number of ways we're looking at doing that. We're looking at education, we're looking at skills training, and we're looking at direct mental health and counselling help. In its purest form, the charity exists to carry forward Amelie and Daniel's values because they're no longer here to do so.
For Kiran, now back in Sri Lanka, the Shangri-La bomb was a flashback to the civil war he'd experienced growing up here as a child.
For me, the Civil War left a profound mark in my life looking back. I remember as a child, it's normal. You know, you look around and see bombing at night, middle of the night you'll hear shell coming from a big camp, and you'll think of that as a very normal event.
The war raged for 25 years as Tamil insurgents sought to establish an independent state in Sri Lanka. The conflict killed tens of thousands of people and wounded and displaced many thousands more. Few families were left untouched, but Kiran's was torn apart, caught in the crossfire between insurgents and the Sri Lankan army.
My brother, he was 6 years older than me. I must have been 11, 12 at the time. I can see him coming from the senior school running towards me, and I was running towards him. I see him being shot, falling down. So I ran to him, and there was a moment of shock. There's a moment of, I was very young. I didn't know what to do. But my father, he loved his son, and he said, you know what, I do not care. And he just walked into the camp to see the body. And they arrested him, and they kept him for 6 months for asking that, and they tortured him.
Kiran's father paid smugglers to get him out of Sri Lanka to Britain and safety. Kiran claimed asylum and lived with a Tamil refugee charity in London. He excelled at school, went to university, and then worked with prestigious firms in the City of London.
Then I decided that there must be a reason that God somehow seen me all this death and destruction on one side, and somehow brought me all the way through this journey to England.
Kieran had set up an educational charity aiming to help train young survivors of the Civil War in technology. Surviving the Easter bombing gave new impetus and urgency to his plans. Kieran too is determined to help Sri Lankans get back on their feet after his own lucky escape from the Shangri-La.
This is a country that has given me everything in my life, and I feel that this kind of enforces why we must do, we can only overcome evil by education and empowerment.
His charity is now focusing on high-tech training to provide employment and opportunity for the young.
You're right. I'm all right.
I wanted to make sure they're learning the machine learning of the world, the AI, the blockchain, whatever the future we think is going to be here.
Two former students of Kieran's have come to Colombo to help him set up his high-tech academy.
So I brought in someone from India to teach augmented reality because I'm very
augmented reality. That's pretty advanced.
That's right, because one of the things that my passion for these guys were that when I was studying in Sri Lanka, I wanted to learn about heart. I need to go and read like 5 or 6 books before I can understand. But because the technology, the augmented reality, you can literally see the heart just literally in front of you. So I wanted to create that kind of a curiosity into education. One of the things, guys, when I listen to you guys is that, we have this grit, within our culture, as a country, we have this resilience, amazing resilience.
Another Shangri-La bomb survivor, Hanaka, like Kieran, has her roots in this island.
I was born in Melbourne, Australia, and my family's Sri Lankan. The first time I ever went was after the end of the Civil War. I have been going back on holidays ever since. There's a weird sense of home when I go back. When you have an experience like this where you think you're about to die, suddenly all the things that you thought were important to you become quite clearly not that important.
I never could have imagined how horrific these things could be and how much devastation it can cause, and we're all human, and seeing other people's pain firsthand.
And so I started Dine for Lanka, which is a not-for-profit fundraiser, and it's focused around food because I think food brings people together regardless of their race or religion or political view or gender. We supported a local Sri Lankan charity called Kind Hearted Lankans. They are doing all the hard work on the ground, working with us and distributing to help people in terms of their medical needs, people who are impacted by the attacks, in terms of their financial needs, livelihood assistance that they require, whether we help by providing prosthetics or beds for people who are paralysed, they can get out of hospital and actually move back to their homes in an electric bed where they're not at risk of further spinal injuries. One thing I'm very aware of is that we can't undo what happened. And there's this entrenched pain and grief that a lot of people are dealing with. We can't undo that. But just bringing a little bit of positivity or hope can keep someone going for a little bit longer.
ඉතින් දැන් ඇත්තටම ගොඩක් දුකින් තමයි ඉතින් අපි කාලේ ගෙවන්නේ. මමත් මගේ දරුවත් දැන් හැමදාටම තනි වෙලා.
Like many Sri Lankans, Chandrani and her daughter are struggling to cope after the loss of the family breadwinner, Diluk. They depend on local people who've rallied round to help.
ඒ කට්ටියගේ ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨ පදනම යටතේ මට මගේ අංග සම්පූර්ණ මට ගයක් හදලා දුන්නා. මම ඒට ගොඩාක් ස්තුති කරනවා. නැත්නම් මට මගේ දරුවට පාරට වෙලා ඉන්න වෙන්නේ.
Those whose lives were destroyed by the bombings still struggle to comprehend these acts of hate.
ඉතින් අපට ඇත්තටම කියන්න මොනවද කියලාවත් අපට දැනෙන්නේ වචන නම් නැහැ කියන්න. ඉතින් ඇයි එහෙම කරේ කියන්න. ගොඩාක් මරුණේ අසරණ හොඳ අසරණ මිනිස්සු තමයි කුඩා දරුවන් පවා මැරලා ගියේ. දරුවන්ට දෙමව්පියෝ නැහැ, බිරිඳයන්ට ස්වාමිපුරුෂයා නැහැ, ස්වාමිපුරුෂයාට බිරිඳ නැහැ.
The attacks were an attempt to stir up religious conflict in this multi-faith nation. But appeals for calm by Christian leaders helped stop further widespread bloodshed.
That is much important to live together because we still love, all the communities. As a Christian, we love everyone. Even we love the people, who hated us.
The Shangri-La bombing brought 3 people from thousands of miles away together with one aim: to let Sri Lankans know they won't be forgotten.
This isn't the Sri Lanka that I knew, and it's certainly not the Sri Lanka that I know now. This could have happened anywhere in the world, and I think it's really important when things like this happen to move forward and learn lessons.
A lot of the young people, they're hoping that we can put all of this behind and move forward. When you walk on a day like today, it's a holiday today, and people are here, looking in the beach in a way for a hope.
When something terrible happens, you're left with a huge hole in your life. Our ultimate hope is that the only way we as a family and I think as a world can come to recover is that something good can come out of something so evil. And we've made a start.